This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 14th of October 2021, and I am 2J.
I'm 2M.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, murder of a champ. In the Standard, how child killer strolled out of police cells. In the Star, RAILA, how I will roll out 6,000 shillings to 8 million people. And in the People Daily, Uhuru's vow in maritime row. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Now, today I will not address my dear Kikuyus. Today I will address Somalis in Somalia. And I will tell them a story. Once upon a time, there was a place called Ogoniland in the Niger Delta in southern Nigeria. In 1957, Ogoniland struck oil. It was plenty and flowed like a nonsense. The largest oil companies then, Royal Dutch Shell and Chevron, immediately set up shop in readiness for extraction. But extraction could not happen with the Ogoni people there. So they forced them to move out. Then in 1979, the Nigerian government decreed full ownership and rights of all Nigerian territory and also declared that compensation for seized land would be based on the value of the crops on the land at the time, not the value of the land itself. The effect of this decree was this. The Nigerian government could distribute the land to all companies as it deemed fit, and nobody could do nothing about it. Angry at the government's belligerence, the Ogoni people got angry and formed a group called Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, MOSOP. The founder of this group was Ken Saro-Wiwa. We'll tell you his story another day. Anyway, much later, MOSOP morphed into other armed groups that waged war on oil companies and the Nigerian government. Long story short, from the 90s to now, the Niger Delta has known no peace. Hundreds of foreign nationals have been kidnapped or killed by the militias in Niger Delta. These militias raided pipelines and millions of oil liters spilled into the delta, killing marine life and permanently messing up the ecosystems. The whole place was, or rather has remained ungovernable to date. What's the point of my story? Like Nigeria in the 50s, your Farmer Joe's next move is to award drilling concessions to foreign oil companies without your consent. And just like the Nigerian government then told its people that it will only compensate for crops and not for land, Farmer Joe will tell you that you are only entitled to the fish in the water and not your newfound oil wealth. Like clockwork, you Somalia people, like the Ogonis in Niger Delta, will be up in arms. And before you know it, armed groups will be attacking oil companies at sea. In fact, we want to hypothesize they will form groups that will make the current madness of pirates and Al-Shabaab look like a Sunday school picnic. Somalia will be a whole new war zone. Oil spills will reach our pristine Lamu beaches and waters, killing tourism. Somali refugees will pour into Kenya looking for a safe haven. In sum, we will have a Niger Delta scenario in Somalia. Therefore, our dear Somalian friends, please tell Farmer Joe to keep off what he cannot keep, because if he cannot protect you from Al-Shabaab right now, how will he protect you from the curse of an oil war?
Dark words there. So, I will pivot. As I watched the tete-a-tete between Uhuru Kenyatta and Jeff Koinange yesterday, I interestingly drew parallels between Uhuru and his father, Jomo, at two levels. One, approaches to succession, and the second, their view of Africa and its place in the world. I'll begin with succession. A confidential memo, now declassified, was sent to the American Embassy on the 26th of January 1977. The subject of the memo was KANU election prospects. It is the end of the memo that I'll focus on, and it read, "These comments do not resolve ambiguities in the embassy's reading of Kenyatta's personal stand on KANU elections and succession. Kenyatta could well be giving different signals to different people. For example, Kenyatta had it in his power to give the Kiambu Kikuyu group control of the important Mombasa branch without a new election, but he decided to let elections take place and expose the group to risk of defeat. Similarly, uncertainty as to whether he will have Nyanza elections repeated suggests that his position is not as clear-cut as KANU sources would have it appear.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to today. When we look at Uhuru and how he has approached politics, the past by-elections, and the Jubilee Party, the blueprint is somehow similar to how Jomo treated KANU just before his succession election. Jomo knew then that picking a successor to please the Kikuyu elite and controlling each outcome would be detrimental to his long game.
Yeah.
And now, maybe Uhuru has seen that picking a Kikuyu successor for 2022 will give the opponent an obvious rallying point against Kikuyu hegemony. That is why you have 12 or so presidential candidates, and Uhuru seems to be encouraging all of them. The second parallel was between Jomo and Uhuru is that of Pan-Africanism. Yesterday's interview may not have had a sexy political soundbite. There were no digs to a man in Karen or something like that. But here's what we should have paid attention to. Uhuru told us that Africans and people of African descent have a population of 2 billion. But the problem is that they're very loosely connected. Uhuru wants leaders to bridge that gap in a strong and coherent manner and to drive the African agenda.
Yeah.
This is so that they can negotiate at the global stage and approach multilateral systems, not as individual countries, but as one voice for people of African descent.
Yeah.
Now, he left us Africans with a challenge to manufacture vaccines for our 2 billion people, forcing production away from the east or west or wherever it is into our region to supply our people, putting a stop to the vaccine apartheid. Now, just like Jomo joined hands with Nkrumah, Nyerere, Lumumba, and Senghor of Senegal to spread the message of political and economic cooperation of Africa, so too is Uhuru in a big yet understated way. And he showed us last week by hosting the first African Caribbean community heads of state and government meeting. Can somebody say Wagwan?
Wagwan.
Black cloth.
So to connect what both GK and 2M have touched on, I want to open the public's eyes to the art of diplomacy that the president is teaching us. And this diplomacy has focused on pursuing a win-win strategy, both at home and abroad, unlike our dear Somalis. So we say repeatedly here that the media is either lazy or evil, and oftentimes both.
Right.
Lazy because they don't do due diligence when reporting the news. Evil because they profit off selling negativity, and oftentimes both because they have no interest in telling stories that inspire country.
Yes.
So today I want to inspire the country a little bit, and I will do so by focusing on the big picture, and those are the things that are happening and are spearheaded by Uhuru Kenyatta. I think, as both of them have just said, in the past week, the president visited Barbados, where he received the Order of Freedom of Barbados award, which is the highest state order.
Yes.
And while there, he signed 3 bilateral agreements to promote cooperation in aviation, environmental conservation, trade, and investment. He then jetted off to New York, where he chaired a UN Security Council high-level meeting and is set to meet with President Biden to discuss insecurity in the Eastern African region. At home, the aim of the handshake overall was political inclusion. He knows that he cannot leave us with the same old ethnic tensions. But representing Kenya in Barbados, the US, the UN, or even in Somalia is all about this big picture. We are speaking of connecting African products and people to Mombasa and the world. And at the same time, ensuring security and free trade in the region. So Uhuru's legacy will be that he laid the foundation to transform Kenyans from earners of wages to owners of capital. And in order to achieve that, we must be promoters of security, trade, and international relationships. So in the spirit of giving more unsolicited advice to Ruto and Baba, handouts just don't cut it. Sure, 6,000 shillings and job opportunities is way better than a wheelbarrow. But the 5th president of Kenya has to stand for more. And the truth is that Uhuru is leaving very big shoes to fill. Point is, these daily newspapers don't want you to know that your president is at work. So the 5th estate is going to lift that veil of ignorance. if the president, in the president's own words rather, this is what economic acceleration, restoration of dignity, big push investments, and political stabilization is all about. This is beyond 2022 or even 2030. This is the future of Kenya, courtesy Uhuru Kenyatta.
I like that.
You know what, 2J? And I have a hypothesis.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no way the meeting between President Uhuru and Biden had been planned before. This was, this was,
Impromptu.
Impromptu. It was spontaneous. And I mean, when you have the chair, and he's an African president, you have the chair of
the
Security Council, Karen, and he's in your country. You know, you've got to place a call and say, yo,
Come over.
How can you be going back to Kenya and you haven't
said hi?
Say hi.
Of course.
Absolutely.
A good legacy there. So we have a 3-part criteria that we are using to break down headlines. Is it topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, thoughtful or just plain lazy? I automatically felt very patriotic today. It is KDF Day, and I want to say that people daily should get it.
Yes.
Uhuru's vow in maritime vow, which is not an inch more,
Not
an inch less. Like
right? And I'll end with this. Happy KDF Day. The brave men and women of the military should always be honored by for their sacrifice by their country. The true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. And that was said by G.K. Chesterton. Sorry.
Wait, GK, you don't want us to do cartoons today?
Oh. Let's do cartoons.
So on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. GK, what do we ask ourselves?
We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective?
Or just plain lazy? How about we start with the standard today?
Let's start with the standard. You have Gado. And GK tells me there's a guy called Kigame, and he's a blind musician, and there he is belting out tunes, and he's belting out tunes to RAILA, Ruto, and voters as well. And they're actually standing on a cliff, and below the cliff is elections 2022, and the caption there is, "Those with eyes will not see, and those without will lead." Now GK tells me that Kigame is actually
blind, yes.
But he's also running.
He's also running. And then
next year,
in the little band drum, he's got his Kigame for Prezo.
But wait, what I've just understood about this cartoon is that they're ushering him to go off the cliff. So they're lying to him that the election is off the cliff so that he'll go and fall off.
And they're going to sing.
Are they saying that he's a threat?
But luckily he's gone in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But what does it look, that little guy down there?
He's saying chapter 1, verse 1.
Yeah, Kigame chapter 1, verse 1. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, it's quite funny, even though it's making...
It's dark humor.
Dark humor, I
Then
know.
in the People Daily, we have a Ruto caricature standing at the mountain. And he's gazing at Mount Kenya. And behind him, Wanjiku is apparently saying, for you to know what the mountain has decided, you'll have to wait until you see white smoke.
I love it. I love it.
You know what this reminds me of? You know how they decide who the new pope is going to be?
Yes, at the Vatican.
Yeah, at the Vatican. So they use the papers to make the votes and they put it into a fireplace.
Yes. Yeah.
And the people outside wait.
Yeah.
When it comes out black, they know that the elders have not decided.
Yeah.
But the moment it comes out white is when they know that a new pope has been
chosen.
Absolutely. So he's basically telling Ruto, don't be too cocky.
To chill.
Right? I know. The vote is not yours. You don't own it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Right. So we park that.
Finally, in the Daily Nation, we have 2 caricatures, one of the deputy president in yellow and another of RAILA in the back. And it looks like the deputy president has set up a wheelbarrow trap. And attached to the trap are promises, more promises, lots of promises.
Yeah.
But I guess also behind him is RAILA, who is also holding some promises.
Yeah.
And I think the promises are for the youth vote. I think what this cartoon is telling us is that they're both, aiming for that youth vote, both with promises.
Yeah.
But I think he's trying to say that the promises are a potential trap.
But he's also telling us that Ruto is very rudimentary. If you are setting up traps using a wheelbarrow, then you're from the 16th century.
The Dark Ages. So shall we toss the Daily Nation? We're left with the Standard and the People Daily.
PD wins.
PD, for being a little bit philosophical with us.
I quite like it.
There you have it. People Daily give us our winning cartoon. On a day where we had a winning headline from the People Daily as well. I want to wish our soldiers Happy KDF Day.
Absolutely.
Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Pine Vita, and Star Times.
God bless.